Brain, are you ready for another shift at the number factory? We have to stop the sun from exploding.
What? Why? What's wrong with the sun? What's happening to it?
It just doesn't like it when there are numbers that aren't factored.
Okay.
Anyway, hello, welcome to Keeping Busy. I'm Zach, joined by Brandon. Today's game is Nubby's Number Factory, my new gaming addiction. And normally, we would start a more like roguelite type game with beginning of the run, but I had such a good run that I wanted to show my current run and also overload Brandon's senses. But I will, of course, go into game mechanics. So if you've played Peggle, it's something like a roguelite version of Peggle. I can aim this ball, shoot it, and it'll bounce, and it'll score points based on the peg. So if this hits this, it'll give me 2.09 million points, and then that peg will be halved. Every time a peg gets hit, it'll or popped, as it's described in this game. Every time it gets popped, its score will be decreased by half until eventually it goes like 4, 2, 1, 0, and then at 0 it just disappears. Our goal is this number next to the target, and here we have a bunch of items. I'm not going to describe anything yet. I'm just gonna shoot the ball, and I want you all to pay attention to what happens.
Oh my god. Oh Jesus.
So pretty much all of my items summon things whenever I do things, and I have this, the Eggy perk, which doubles everything I summon. So I'm doubling everything, and then I'm also like force triggering, which means like, for example, Jags normally would only trigger if I've already passed the round, but I have items that trigger it before then. And then this transforms into the Jack, so I summon more of these, and then I'm doubling them with this. It's actually, oh my gosh, I think I failed that somehow. I think. Or did I not? Oh my god, I did. I might not be able to pass this. Which I can't believe, considering literally everything going on right now. Once per life, these are your lives right here. Once per life, you can rejumble the board to like try to get a better shot. That 2.09 million is really hiding away from me though. Yeah, I'm currently, oh my gosh. I'm clearing the entire board and not getting enough points. That's really, really sad. Wow, yeah, I can't get enough points. I thought I would at least be able to pass a couple of rounds. But sadly, I must say goodbye to this run. But I at least wanted to show it off on camera. Yep. There's the sun. Sun's not happy about my run. It is exploded. Alright, so now that we're in the game proper... this is a new character. You usually start with a different character. This is a modified version. He gives me extra gold, and I get to start with a shop.
Alright.
So, you know, typical roguelite stuff. Spend gold on items. Items help you do things. They give you abilities. So, like, this one on the first peg popped. For every time the board has restocked this game, gain plus 15 points. That's better later on. Like, this one scales. Oh, inflatable dolphin early is pretty cool. This would normally trigger on Nubby dying, but there are ways to force trigger, which means even, like, before Nubby dies, if I force trigger this, I can get it to happen. This will summon a beach ball. The beach ball explodes, and the confetti hits the pegs, and the pegs give me extra points. So, I'm actually going to buy this because I have enough for it right now, and then we can't buy anything else. I guess we could reroll. I can get an upgraded dolphin. Like in a lot of A lot of auto battlers do this, actually. You can, like, freeze one, so that way you can at least keep one of them.
Oh, for when you go back into the shop again, it won't, like, randomly generate the shop. It will just keep that specific item that you've, like, kind of, like, frozen.
Yep.
Okay. That's cool.
So now that we're in a more understandable position, I now have to actually play the game. Oh, that beach ball completely missed, but it's fine. It's the very early rounds.
Okay, now I see Peg. Now I see Peggle.
It's hard to see at first because I just summoned 50. I summoned an army.
Right. And it makes me wonder if, like, at the end of that run, like, was there ever even a possibility that you'd ever get past it, or did you finally get to the point where this game's difficulty goes up to the point where it's impossible to complete that round after, like, 80-something?
Well, I had completed the round, but after you complete the game, it puts you in endless mode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So, like, that's just sort of bragging rights at that point, just see how high you can get.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So, but what does that mean? Like, it puts you in endless mode, but at the end of the game, do you save the sun?
I mean, the sun's still exploding in endless mode, so... But, like, I think the final level is Armageddon, and then once you beat Armageddon, it says you save the world, but the sun's still exploding in endless mode, so... You know, you can't trust everything you read on Nubby's Number Factory. It's a game that lies and deceives.
Okay.
But yes, this is our end-of-year game, so we're going to talk about 2025 as a whole, talk about maybe what the future might hold for the channel or just us in general, and then maybe some games we're looking forward to, either games that will be coming out next year or games that we own but haven't touched yet. Like, this is a game I got from my Christmas money. I bought a bunch of other games too. I could be playing Doom Dark Ages, but I'm playing Nubby's Number Factory instead. Oh, and then there are different pegs, so like when I hit this one, it'll also hit the highest one.
So what was that? Was that like a one-time use item?
No, those, like, every once in a while there would just be random pegs with power-ups. That one wasn't based on an item. It's just sometimes you get a nice little bonus, and those are fun. Up in here's perks. Perks are separate from items. You can only have up to 7 items, but I think perks are unlimited.
Sure.
Ooh. Well, this goes great with our dolphin, because that's triggers all when I die abilities, and this is a when I die ability, so this is pretty much going to trigger twice now. Now I get 2 beach balls.
This kind of early 2000s, late to mid 90s PC game aesthetic is something I've been seeing a lot more just like in the past year or so. A lot of people doing either animated shorts or indie games that use this specific look. And I'm curious why that nostalgia kind of just wrapped back around now. But I admit, I look at this and I do find it very appealing.
Yeah, this immediately reminded me of Hypnospace Outlaw, that like game where you're playing as sort of a 90s internet investigator.
Right.
Yeah, I think we're just in that era now where people are you know, nostalgic for that, because there was a long time where people were nostalgic for the 8-bit and the 16-bit, and now it seems we're getting nostalgic for just random old internet stuff, and I kind of really like this style. Less so because of nostalgia. I don't actually remember a whole lot of 90s, 2000s sites that much, besides like Nickelodeon and Disney. But like, I think it's just a cool and weird aesthetic that you don't really see nowadays, because everything's much more like corporate and clean, where like technically it looks better, but these had like a flair to them.
Right. Recently, I was visiting my sister down near Washington, D.C., And as we were driving through the area, which is like on the outskirts when you're getting into Virginia, there's a lot of headquarters of like different corporate businesses. And you look at like the architecture around that area and the buildings, and a lot of like the apartment complexes. They're all slick, but they all look like identical. Just the same building repeated over and over again with the same like different story layers that have the same windows with the same balconies. And it all like is technically a lot slicker than some of the houses we have here in our small country Pennsylvania area. But it also just feels dystopian because it all just looks identical. So yeah, I mean, that's a similar thing that this game is calling into, is that I do remember the internet in that era well enough to remember like Angel Fire fan sites of different franchises and that sort of thing, where it was just like these goofy little animated GIFs of like early 3D models and just crazy backgrounds that were also animated, so you could barely read the text on the site. There was definitely appeal to it. I remember when I was younger and I used like a DeviantArt account to like draw fan art of like Sonic and like other characters. Early DeviantArt was one of those sites that held on to its old-timey aesthetic for a long time, like way longer than most websites. It of course eventually went the way as most do, where it combined with another company and became something that basically looks like a modern, Twitter or a modern Tumblr or that sort of thing, where everything has to homogenize into the same kind of look. But I respected how long DeviantArt held on to that kind of early internet like kind of look to it, where everything is kind of differently sized and a little scrappier in a way that just is more appealing to the eye than the typical scrolling app. So it's good to see that at least this stuff is coming back in a indie sense, because how else would it come back? The corporations aren't going to make something that looks like this.
Yeah, and it's not like I can blame them, but at the same time, I feel like indie games are definitely carrying a lot of the slack nowadays, because AAA is really focused on highly specific, like either very addictive mobile games or like lots of remakes and just like the things with the highest amount of appeal to try to make the most amount of money. And it's like, I can't fully blame them for wanting to make money, because you gotta make money to be able to make more games, but...
And we talked about them prior BZs, even especially this year, about a lot of indie games playing into the aesthetics of like the PlayStation 1 era or like the N64 and that kind of stuff, and how we kind of have mixed feelings on people making games solely based on their nostalgia for a specific like aesthetic or art style. And there's definitely some cynicism you can take from that about, oh, remember when 3D graphics looked bad when we didn't know what we were actually doing with them? But you also look at it, not necessarily from the lens of which those games were made, but just from the aesthetic of like something like this, where you're like, yeah, but by making something that looks like it's out of a different era, it has more individuality than something that comes out now, where every remake has to be a much more like hyper-realistic. Everything has to look as realistic as possible to show off our technology of now. Whereas games from earlier eras they were not necessarily striving for hyper-realism so much as trying to get to the closest path that they could with the limitations of their hardware, which ultimately had to fall back on stylization to look the way that they could. Or, other games like platformers and all that came up with their own art style because they weren't trying to look realistic. They were trying to just be a escapist video game world. And occasionally you'll get a game nowadays that does that. Unfortunately, most of them are in the indie scene, but occasionally you'll get AAA stuff like that. But that's definitely something that definitely appeals to a lot more people. Even if ultimately the major corps and a lot of like the AAA like game awards and all that, they kind of strive for, oh, look how amazing and lifelike this looks. And recently Scott the Woz on his video talking about pro consoles like the PlayStation 5 Pro and all that. He's like, well, look, we're never going to get a jump in quality of graphics like we've had in the past. Like, video games are never going to look that much better. And I question that. I feel like there's been many different eras where game magazines and all that have said, hey, look at this, like, video game graphics are definitely never going to get any better than this. How can it get better? And then, of course, immediately, like a couple years later, the next console generation comes out, and it's like a huge leap. So I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it is still possible for things to look better, but I think it is going to take a little bit to have that kind of bigger jump. And I also think that maybe that will be in that time period where developers will start to push things in different directions and focus on not so much realism, but different art styles to make things stand out more, because they'll have to when everything starts to really blend together. Because if there's anything that Zach and I really took from watching the Game Awards this year, it was, one, how depressingly dystopian the whole thing felt with how similar every game trailer felt. Occasionally you get something that really stood out, but most of the games showed off at the Game Awards that people that paid advertising for their games were games that looked like, immediately all you think of with every single new IP is, oh, this looks like this again. Oh, this looks like Mass Effect, but not Mass Effect. This looks like Dark Souls, but not Dark Souls. And the art styles and the overall lore and look of the worlds didn't really do enough to distinguish themselves from the things that they're taking from. Everything just kind of felt like a copy of a copy, and it just kind of made me just kind of feel depressed.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I can't even remember most of those games at the moment. Like, I remember how almost every trailer went. Every trailer had that, like, every trailer had that vague but super dramatic thing going on. Just, it started really bothering me.
You know, when it wasn't switching to commercial breaks of yet another game made by Tencent. That's just another anime game that'll have like beautiful art design, but also the art style looks the same in like all of their games. And they're all like free to play games, which there are definitely a lot of people out there that love that. And like, that's the thing. Like, I sometimes wonder if my kind of lack of interest in most live service stuff makes me an old fogey, and that's kind of the future of a lot of video games. But then you see so many companies that try to do that, and they fail miserably because maybe people don't really want that. Maybe they just want just an online multiplayer game that isn't free to play, that is just more traditional shooter or whatnot. But, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you're being an old fogey for being tired of the live service game. Like, I would not be surprised if tons of people were just tired of the live service game. Like, look at what happened to Concord, which I believe was this year. I'm losing track of all sense of time. I can't remember what was this year or last year or what was 2020. Life is a blur.
Oh, Concord, Zach? No. Concord came out August last year, and it had like a beta for like a little while, but then that's when it had its launch and lasted like a week, and then they immediately took it offline. So no, we've already passed the 1-year anniversary of Concord.
Oh, I want that, but I can't afford it, and I don't think you can freeze food like you can.
That is a really good perk to get that one.
Yeah, I would have really loved to have copied that. I didn't think it would be so expensive. Too poor. No, where do I freeze it? I want to freeze this. I need it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would eat a frozen donut. Like, even after I'd rewarmed it, I probably don't think that'd be very appealing.
Just gotta give it to Homer Simpson or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how do you feel, Brandon, about Expedition 33 winning so many awards? Because I know you quite did enjoy that game this year.
Expedition 33, in terms of what I like, was probably my favorite game of this year, and of course I was happy to see it get such mainstream success, but while watching it sweep the Game Awards and many other, like, I imagine even the developers themselves sitting there in the audience were probably on some level like, this is great, but there's so many great games that came out here that are getting all these nominations. Can some of the other ones also win? Why does it only have to be us? And you can tell that, they had all these different speeches set up, but many of them were either, not expecting to all of them constantly be winning or not, because they kept going on stage and they'd pull out their piece of paper with the written stuff on it. But by the end, they kind of just looked exhausted, like, okay, we get it. You love our game. I love the game. I just don't necessarily like. There's been a lot of articles and YouTube essays of people talking about the precedent this sets, that this successful semi-independent game is getting so successful. What does this mean for the future of games? Or could it spell bad news for the developers themselves now that they have this mainstream success and they'll get all this money and all of this kind of corporate support? Is that going to massively affect their next projects? And then, of course, we had stuff come out about, they used AI. They used a lot of AI in the production of coming up with concept art and textures for the game. So that negates the game's entire success, which, when I looked more into that, no, it wasn't really that that any part of Expedition 33 was generated using AI. It was more that in the conceptual process and during development, they put in some AI textures as placeholders. I think they used some stuff for some generating concept arts. Do I think any AI should be used at all? No, but I'm also not a game developer, and I know that there's some not artistically driven AI generation that more, helps with the AI speeding up programming that probably is not, ethically terrible like all of the AI art generation. But do I think what they did was right? No, I think that there's a place to pay concept artists, and there's a place to you don't have to use AI generation as a placeholder, even though I get that they probably did that so that way they could generate something closer to what the final thing will look like. But do I think that entirely negates all of the true handmade work, all of the actors, all of the people that actually put all that effort into that game? No, I really don't. In the same way that I don't necessarily think that Baldur's Gate 3 is now suddenly the worst game ever because there was some of that stuff behind the scenes. But I do agree with the critics in the sense that, this stuff shouldn't be used for anything artistically related to the game. You should be paying your artists or paying your concept artists to give you ideas, not just generating a prompt of what you want, what you think you want, and then having a computer take that from other artists and make your thing. Pay those artists instead. But that's kind of my, I guess, more kind of back and forth on it, is that I feel like, no, in a perfect world, no, they should not be using all this AI for the pre-production of their projects. But considering that no aspect of the game itself has AI in it or anything made with AI, I'm also not really all that quick to immediately go, well, yeah, this game negates all of its successes and is now terrible.
Ew, this is tricky. Sorry, I was listening to what you were saying, but I'm just like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this peg before, and it's beating my ass. Okay, good. I passed it. Yeah, I have been in the homemade TCG community, not like fully, but like I've been kind of like peeking in, and when I first joined it, AI concept art, like filler art for cards, was heavily used. But then as we learn more about AI and its massive disadvantages, like its environmental impact, and not to mention a lot of artists coming out and being like, hey, like, we kind of get it, but it's also really shitty. A lot of people have started backing off on it, which is nice to see. There's a game I've been helping test, and they started off with AI art, but now they're almost completely human-made art for their first set, which is great to see.
Yeah, I mean, these tools are here now, Zach. Like, they're not going away, and especially when every single goddamn app under the sun on your phone or on PC now has a little pop-up on it that goes, do you want to use the AI mode? Do you want to use the AI tools, the AI features? We're too entrenched now for people to just not use it, especially the general public that doesn't understand the harm of what these things cause. But I also think that a lot of people, especially people working in heavily creative fields that have to deal with this stuff day in, day out, should have the self-awareness to be able to look at this stuff and realize what it's doing and what it looks like for them to use it. But I also speak from somebody who has a lot of friends that are artists that are actually affected by this stuff, that have to, post their work to social media to get any sort of traction, and then have to look through other people that are just typing words into a prompt and getting something that in some cases look like it's almost taken from my friend's work, and also generating similar amounts of success from people that simply just do not care. And, at the beginning of all this, Zach, what the ultimate question that you first asked was our feelings about kind of the year as a whole in some respects. And I mean, yeah, like this stuff has been kind of a good portion of what's personally affected me throughout the year. The political stuff aside, I mean, the political stuff is all, what's become of this country is also nightmarish and, and fascist and strange and terrible in its own ways. But in terms of my day-to-day life, as ignorant and apathetic as it sounds, that stuff doesn't directly affect me. That is simply things that are also happening that just further, put a damper on my feelings about the place I live and the people that run it. I try to donate here and support where I can and listen when I need to listen. But it's also one of those things where it's difficult not to feel like things are out of your hands with how bad things can be. It's never something you can succumb to, but it is always something that is going to be at the back of your mind when you're just like, you're just going to have to keep hearing about it, because what can you exactly do? So that's why, I at least I appreciate the agency in my life that whenever an AI tool pops up, I can say not interested. I can delete it or try to get rid of it off of any device I have, even though I know I can't 100% do it. But at least, the corporations give me the option to say that I don't want to use it.
Yeah, I like you said, I feel like I can't go anywhere without AI being brought up. I'm like, where are all these people getting AI from? Like DeviantArt especially, like I've seen kind of pushing AI a lot.
Yeah, I haven't been on there as much as I used to when I was a teenager drawing fan art, but when you look back on there and see it's very kind of Twitter-esque kind of style, more less stylistic design and more just kind of corporate and slick. yeah, of course, along with that came look at our AI tools, look at this AI stuff. And while the settings will give you an option to filter that stuff out, it never filters it out completely, because some people just full on won't tag it. They'll just post it. I mean, in terms of my day-to-day life, and the stuff that's happened to me over this year, I mean, I feel I have a lot of good memories this year. I have a lot of, like, just usual, like, fun conventions I go to with friends that I help out with, whether I'm volunteering or I'm just hanging out, meeting new people, meeting people that I've, admired the work of, making content, whether it's this series, whether it's my podcast, whether it's the few times I've actually made creative projects of my own outside of simply just, the podcasts or Let's Plays, where I'm trying to write my own stories. I would say that this Christmas was one of the best Christmases I've had in multiple years of my life, where, like I said, that was when I was up visiting my sister, as I mentioned earlier, and spending time with her and the family that she has now acquired through her husband, and just, the cultural differences of both the area and the family and their traditions. That really just helped just liven things up, add some variety in a way that I haven't had in many years, where it's, the same places that I always go to, the same type of traditions, and having that change of scenery and change of pace and things being more chaotic with more people there and having to manage all of our dogs and all that kind of stuff was chaotic, but it wasn't unpleasant. It was fun in a way that I don't usually feel in most social situations anymore. I got some cool stuff. I got some surprising stuff from, the family members that, of course, don't usually know what I like. I got cool stuff for other people that I was happy to see they enjoyed. And always that's why travel, like, it's one of those things where, because of the nature of the world we live in, it's almost like the vacation is the goal, like the work is simply the thing that you're forced to do to get to the things you actually want. So you do the work and then you do the travel, and it's like, if only I could do this all the time. And it's like, well, nope, now you got to go back to doing the work thing. So, but I can say at the very least that the traveling is always worth it. Seeing new places, meeting new people, returning to meet friends that I haven't seen in a while. It's a real breath of fresh air. Especially when you're like Zach and I, and you live in a, small town with, like, a couple Confederate flags and just general, like, just Republican vibes everywhere, but in a way that just can feel downright oppressive at times. Yeah, getting out of town for a bit can feel really nice. And admittedly, I do find myself going to other places that line up more with what I believe, because, of course, for the first time in my life, I was in a protest for real this year. I went to the No Kings protest against Trump with some of my friends, and that was a surreal experience, like being in a massive crowd of people that all feel the same things you do and are expressing it in their own different and creative ways, whether it's cosplaying, whether it's the creative use of signage, whether it's just the ways they form their groups and how they band together, how respectful everybody was to each other because they all knew that they were there for the same reasons. And then just seeing the people that were detractors, like the people driving past that didn't agree with us, that really had nothing creative of their own to contribute. They would just kind of, they would hold up their hats with their phrase of their candidate on it. They would put a thumbs down outside their car. But it was just one of those feelings of just no effort put in. Just, this is all they have to offer. They have no creativity of their own to push back, because they don't really have anything of value to say or contribute. They are just trolls. They voted for this because they just wanted to make the other people on the other side angry, not because they actually believed in what they're doing anymore. Because how could they when it's so terrible? And that's kind of the thing that scares me most about other aspects of the world and the future of it is just people that do things that genuinely change other people's quality of life and the state of the world, not because it actually lines up with their beliefs, but because it either is agreed upon by their cult-like groups that they're attached to, or just general apathy about the world that goes to a point where they're willing to push back solely just so it pisses the person on the other side of the fence off, and not because, you know, they have any moral feelings about the choice they're making. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's far more, you know, agency and anger in their decisions. But it always feels to me like after the pandemic and after so much about this world that we live in, people are, and the mental health decline, I thought it was, a lot of it just to me just kind of felt like people just, like I said, making choices not with any thought, but pure apathy of, well, I want to do the thing the other person doesn't like. Which is why the protest was such a moment of hope, because everybody there had put in so much work to make this happen. And when you realize across the entire nation, it was the largest protest in the history of the country, how many people were just kind of fed up. My one friend dressed up as a character from The Big Lebowski to give the idea of, look, this character usually wouldn't get off his ass for anything, but he at least believes in this. That's the message he was trying to spread. That, yeah, people have just had enough, and they were willing to hold hands and stand up for it instead of just, you know, lying in dim acceptance of what they live in. And that's the thing that's, you know, the most encouraging to me about the future, is that in a world where I feel like all of us are trapped in our own tiny little internet bubbles, where we feel certain ways about things and we just sort of assume that's just the way things are, when in actuality we are trapped in our own little internet echo chambers. And when you actually get the views of the general public, they view things completely outside the views of terminally online people like us. They view things in a very different way. And when even those people are standing up for something, that means something to me. The only question is, will it be enough? Will it be enough? And it seems to be enough because it seems to be a vast majority. And that's the thing you want to hope for. And this is interesting because it's actually quite different from when Zach and I did a video on a mod of Half-Life 2 last year, where it was a mod where there's no NPCs and no enemies and you're just walking alone through Half-Life 2. And we talked a lot about the feelings that why we would want to live in this kind of world where this character has nobody around them and it's peaceful. And I spoke very negatively about the state of the world at that time and my feelings about it as the election was coming up the day after. And Zach was the hopeful one who was like, well, yeah, but why just dwell on it that way? Like, what literally is the use in being negative? But at the time, I just didn't really see where you could even find the positivity. Like, what was there to grasp onto? But a year in to this year, despite how many terrible things have happened, I find myself surprisingly hopeful because of the amount of people I see around me that are also fed up.
Yeah, like I'm a generally anxious person a lot, and I am typically very, very cynical, but cynicism is generally my first thought process, but for the past couple of years, I've just been like, but why? Where does that land me? You know, by just being cynical and accepting horrible things, we just allow horrible things to continue. Or at least that's just my general thought process of just like,
And that seems like common sense, doesn't it? Like, I feel like it should be common sense, and yet it isn't for a lot of people, which is the insanity of it all. The levels of irony that so many of the worst people in the world right now operate on, where they can't, but I don't even think they can tell what they believe in. Ooh, Zone 3. So how many rounds are there entirely before you do finish this game?
I don't remember. I've only finished it once.
Right, before it goes into endless mode.
I mean, when we were doing the endless mode, it looked like that was round 81, so it seems like round 80 is the last one. I mean, like, these rounds fly by really, really fast.
Yeah. So I went on way too long talking about my complicated feelings about this year, but I guess one of the other things we wanted to touch on, Zach, is what we're kind of looking forward to. Unless you had any other thoughts about this year after I went on for like 20 minutes.
Nothing as, like, deep as all of that. Just, I don't know. I feel like this year has been weird for me. Like, it's been good, but I don't want to say bad. I don't think I had a bad year. Just more like, I feel like in December, I've kind of woken up almost with, like, a hangover where I just look back at the rest of the year and been like, what was I doing for the past 12 months? But I was doing a lot of good things. My brother, Alec, and I watched a bunch of movies, watched a bunch of shows. I finally caught up on a lot of shows. But, like, I also look back and I'm like, I haven't, like, really beaten the game. I beat Deltarune after chapters 3 and 4 came out. And then just to quickly beat something and also just to play something different. I beat Sonic Mania after Brandon has been recommending me that for years. And I also finally finished a game that I actually played, I think, near the end of last year. The Vampire Smile Dishwasher. I think that was one of the last games we played that year. Or was it one of the first games we played this year? Like I said, everything about, everything about this year just feels like too much of a blur for me, and I feel like, to quote a Robin Williams joke, I feel like I just woke it up from fuck it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the political climate also doesn't help. But, like, I don't know. I feel very on and off about it. I feel, you know, this is how I felt back in 2020. I feel weird, because 2020 was actually a pretty good, well, minus the the very sad and unfortunate deaths in the family, which still affect us to this day. But, like, outside of that, 2020 was one of my most financially successful years. Just because my job was paying me extra, or was paying us extra for being essential employees during the pandemic, because I worked at the grocery store. So I essentially was, like, making a whole bunch of extra money and, like, spending it like dollar bills. Meanwhile, everyone else is like, yeah, I can't go to work, so I don't have any money. And I'm just like, oh. Like, it just feels weird. Like, my brain doesn't exactly know how to process me doing good, and then, but, like, also, you know, like, you see everything with, like, Ice this year, for example, and I just go, like, well, I got to see Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and that's a good show.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I can, a lot of my highlights are some of the media. I mean, yes, it is the stuff I talked about, the stuff I physically did, but yeah, there's a lot of highlights of the media I consume. Zach and I both finished Brotherhood for the first time this year and loved that show to death. But yes, it feels so insignificant when you compare it to what our country, or most specifically, not the country as a whole, but specifically our leader and the government are doing to their own civilians. Whereas people in my local area and around can very easily just kind of write all of it off and be like, well, I mean, they didn't have the papers, they weren't documented for this country. But the same exact people that say shit like that are also the people that I guarantee you, if I grab them by the collar and push them to be physically there to watch ICE rip people out of their homes and drive away in a van with them, I think that their apathy would definitely crack a bit.
I would be concerned otherwise.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, I don't want you to bounce that way.
And also just the pushbacks from other governments, like when the mayor of Chicago, they were trying to push ICE into there, and Chicago was like, and it's like when major officials in all these cities are being like, no, you're not doing that, Mr. President. That's a good feeling. That somebody is actually sane.
I would say somebody needs to be, but I'm starting to question. Come on. Ah, sorry. But yeah, it is nice to see some of the pushback. I think I want to attempt one more run, and then we'll be done.
Okay, we're actually almost to 50 minutes.
I mentioned it. This game is This game is almost double the crack of what Vampire Survivors is for me. I just like seeing the ball fall, seeing it bounce around. It triggers everything my ADHD likes. No.
Yeah, I can definitely see how it hits those specific rodent-like nerve centers in the brain with mobile games and games made by PopCap like Peggle and Plants vs. Zombies, while also having a distinct gimmick of its own that makes it unique and unfortunately just as addictive.
And only being $2 and not having microtransactions.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you look at games like Among Us, that was $5, and that went insane. But that's because a streamer played it, and then everybody had to play it.
And now games are trying to be sold for $70 or $80, and everyone's making jokes about how GTA 6 is going to cost $100, which I don't know how serious people are being about that, but at this point I would not be surprised.
Yeah, it seems like it may in fact be out later into next year, and so we'll see for sure if they actually think they can get away with that. And let's be real, if they do make it $100, people will probably still buy it because it's GTA 6. Yeah, I have a lot of games that I've gotten this year that I need to still get through. Recently I've been playing, the crazy thing I did this year is I've played the majority of the Witcher series. I was not one of those people that just started with Witcher 3 and got into the franchise from there. I played a bit of Witcher 3 and I was liking it, but then I was like, well, there's all this context I'm missing. I should probably play those other games. So I played Witcher 1 and Witcher 2, and I played 30 hours into Witcher 3, but after playing all of those games and realizing Witcher 3 is going to be immensely longer than the first two, I decided I needed a break because there's so much. But I'm happy I played through Witcher 1 and 2, which sounds crazy because most people see those games, especially 1, as deeply archaic with its very kind of clunky battle design, kind of MMO-like, where you have to click a sword icon in a pattern to do combo attacks. But I honestly really enjoyed Witcher 1. I was really into its ambition for being this kind of more lower budget independent PC game made by this kind of new developer at the time the amount of choice you have, especially the chapter where you have to solve a detective mystery, and there's so many different ways that can play out, or so many different ways you can solve it. Just enjoying the characters and the world, the way that the whole idea of The Witcher is that fairy tales, like, it subverts the tropes of fairy tales, but what The Witcher also does is it's a world where if somebody does something that is truly wretched or evil, or an entire community does something that really is like beyond the pale, it will actually cause monsters to spawn in the world, or cause curses to be created purely through people's actions, which is always something I found really interesting about that world, and they play with that in different ways throughout the series. Yeah, I love The Witcher. Then I took a break from it by starting Silent Hill F, the new Silent Hill game, and kind of the only one of the announced ones in the Silent Hill presentations I've only really cared about. Maybe I'll play the remake of 2 someday, but I've already played Silent Hill 2, so I wasn't really all that interested in just a retelling of that story, when ultimately, like with Resident Evil 2 remake, it's cool because they really changed up the gameplay and the layout, and they really kind of rewrote the story and all this stuff. Silent Hill 2 Remake is the same story. They just sort of redid the cutscenes and reacted it. But the gameplay is, I think it's, a little more action-based, and there's a little more differences in it. But I don't really play Silent Hill 2 for the amazing game mechanics and design. The original game was clunky on purpose. It was disorienting on purpose. And that's not really like an experience where I need to experience that again. I loved it in the moment, but that's not the type of horror game that I need to constantly replay. So Silent Hill F, I was happy to see finally a new Silent Hill game. This is what I cared about in any traditional type of Silent Hill game, and I'm enjoying F so far. I'm really interested to see where the story is going. I find a lot of it, it's like capturing the vibes of the older Silent Hill games while definitely being its own thing, which is exactly what you want. I did not expect the combat to be essentially Dark Souls with some tweaks to it. But I honestly think it surprisingly works for Silent Hill, because there is like a stiffness where you have to commit to your actions when you swing. So you can, and the enemies are fast, so if you screw up, they can really do some damage to you. And there is a lot of tension that I'm going to die and get resent back somewhere in that game. I feel like I do want to run away from a lot of enemies, which is something that I think the developers kind of intend. So I am enjoying that game. And then I ended up doing this whole Christmas thing with going out of town, and I was like, well, I guess I'll bring my Switch with me and do something on my Switch, and I got Knights of the Old Republic for my Switch, which has been another commitment. So now I'm focusing on that game, and I haven't played Silent Hill F in a bit, but I also got a whole bunch of games for Christmas, including a Dreamcast game in the form of Grandia 2, and I've also got, what else did I get? I got Chronos, which is the other game, other new horror game made by the same people as Silent Hill 2 Remake. And then I also have Final Fantasy Tactics, the remaster of that sitting here. And it's just like, oh, there's so many games. And I always am interested in the ones that are big, and I hate that. I just, like how Zach played Sonic Mania recently, I need to probably find some other shorter games to soak into to break it all up, because there's too many. There's way too many. But like Zach, I also did watch a fair amount of movies this year. I watched the vast majority of the Universal monster film franchise of Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, Frankenstein, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, dating from the 1930s to the 1950s. And my friend Alex and I covered that on a podcast called Monsters Are Universal, shameless plug. And that was a really fun time seeing how those movies held up or didn't hold up, or just the ways in which the sequels, how this was really like the first true cinematic universe, and the ways that the sequels really did come up with creative ways to keep the plot going in a way that honestly, in some ways I thought saw a lot more effort than a lot of sequels we see nowadays. Any games you're looking forward to, or movies or all that you're looking forward to next year, Zach?
I'm not even sure if I know what games are even coming out next year. I mean, I know there's all those ones announced by the Game Awards, but I really don't remember them. It doesn't help that I'm also like focused on the game and I'm just watching the pretty lights and the particle effects.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm legitimately not even sure what's coming out next year. I know what games I want to play next year, but they're mostly games that came out before.
Sure. I mean, I'm pretty hyped for, obviously I'm hyped for Resident Evil Requiem. The 9th Resident Evil game, which will also act as the 30th anniversary Resident Evil game, which is going to be combining the kind of more kind of horror, stealth type of vibes from some of the earlier Resident Evil games and the action type of gameplay you'd expect out of something like Resident Evil 4 Remake or Resident Evil Village. And I'm very cautiously curious to see how they will combine those elements in a way that is satisfactory without coming up with another Resident Evil 6 where the game tries to do everything and fails at everything.
I mean, like Resident Evil 6, that game's bringing back Leon Kennedy.
Yeah, an old Leon Kennedy is like 5 o'clock shadow, and he has some gray hairs, but they still made him. They still made him pretty. Still a pretty boy. He still has to make sure the ladies like him. There's what was I saw some article or something where it was like some of the female employees at Capcom either helped with Leon's design in the new game or approved of it to make sure it worked for them. Which yeah, I'm fine with that. Like I think he looks good and more gameplay like Resident Evil 4, but in a new game, that's exciting. I'm curious to see what the story is. I'm sure Leon's not the only new character returning. It's a 30th anniversary game after all. I'm really excited for Requiem. Like I feel like Resident Evil never seems to fail to get me hyped because they always know what to do with a new direction that makes me interested. Whether it's 7 going back to its roots with that deep swamp Louisiana setting, mold and decrepitness being kind of the focus, the first person perspective. Resident Evil 8 going, oh, so remember that last game? Okay, now we're doing vampires and werewolves. That immediately got me all the remakes, remastering these old games with love and quality put into their remakes in a way that all of them are solid. Yes, I even do like the remake of Resident Evil 3, even if I can't acknowledge the ways in which it doesn't have as much content as the original. I still think I find the remake of 3 much better to play than the kind of the very clunky dodge mechanic the original Resident Evil 3 had that it based entire boss fights around. I got into Trails in the Sky this year when it was remade as Trails in the Sky First Chapter. I, once again, have not fully beaten it yet. I need to get back to it, but I'm excited for that. But I was surprised because one of the things I was worried about is that after I beat it, I would be too worried about it taking years for the next one to come out, so that way I'd forget all about the story. Well, they just announced that Trails in the Sky Second Chapter comes out at the end of next year. So it's going to be not too far away that I will miss out on it. And apparently it's because they, created all the assets and built the engine while making First Chapter that now they have all the assets they need to put 2 together in a way that doesn't take a million years for it to get done. There's the new Scott Pilgrim game made by the developers of the original Scott Pilgrim as well as Shredder's Revenge and the recent Marvel beat 'em up. So I'm excited to see what they do with another Scott Pilgrim game. Especially in the wake of Scott Takes Off, the Netflix animated show who makes Scott kind of an antagonist in that series.
Yeah, I really like Scott Takes Off.
Yeah, I love Scott Takes Off, and I feel like there's a lot of Scott Pilgrim fans that probably don't like it because of how it kind of deconstructs and kind of talks down a lot of the content of the original and kind of dissects what hasn't aged about it. But that's what I loved about it, was that it like turned all of these characters that were sort of one-note ex-boyfriends into legitimate people where you understand, you know, why they are crappy in the ways that they are, but also gives them chances at redemption. And the ways in which the protagonist was given all of the affection. I mean, you know, there were definitely flawed aspects of Scott that were especially, confronted in the original books. But he was still, you know, ultimately the guy at the end that gets the lady and all of that, while Takes Off deconstructs all of that, examines it from a more nuanced angle. And I loved all of that, and I found all of it really satisfying. Making Ramona the protagonist, flawed in her own ways, was very intriguing to me, instead of it just being about Scott Pilgrim again, who in a modern context would not be a very lovable protagonist anymore. And I'm not just saying that because in that show they have Scott make Sonic the Hedgehog references, and I saw myself in him and I hated myself for it. We of course got a whole bunch of video game movies coming out next year too. We got Return to Silent Hill coming out in January, which will be a new movie based on Silent Hill 2, directed by the guy that directed the first Silent Hill movie that has kind of a cult following. I don't know how this is going to go because all of the trailers make it look like a fan film. But we'll see. And of course, there's the Super Mario Galaxy movie, which, like the first Mario movie, will probably be fine. I'm probably not going to feel a whole lot from it, but I'll probably go see it with Zach, and we'll probably think it's fine. Oh yeah, that's right. Mortal Kombat 2 is coming out in May. And, like, I guess we should probably see it, Zach, because this is the movie that's actually going to give us what we're looking for, unlike the first Mortal Kombat movie in a couple years back in 2021. But I don't know. Like, that first movie where it spends the entire movie building up to the Mortal Kombat tournament, but not actually having the Mortal Kombat tournament, soured me so much that I don't know if I want to see the sequel.
Honestly, I don't even blame you. Like, if you want to go see it, I'll go see it with you. But if you decided absolutely not, then I'm not gonna try to convince you otherwise.
Sure. I mean, yeah, it's mostly the same writers and staff, so we'll see how it does. There's a new Resident Evil movie coming out in September. This will be another reboot. It won't be based on any prior Resident Evil movie. This will be a new film with new characters and new lore. That's going to be directed by the man who wrote and directed the hit horror film Weapons that came out this year, which I did not see. But I'm cautiously optimistic about that. He also said that he's going to make this movie actually set in the world of the video games. He wants to make it as canon as possible, but be focusing on different characters in a different location, so that way it's not conflicting with the events of the video games, which sounds interesting. There you go. Wow. Round 60 already. Everything's now back to being explosions. It's funny when you do look through a lot of the 2026 releases, Zach. A lot of them are just games that have already been out for years, but now they have a Switch 2 version coming out. Because the Switch 2 has to catch up with the PS5 and Xbox Series generations.
Did we talk much about our interest or kind of lack thereof of the Switch 2? I don't remember.
We made our video about talking about the reveal of the Switch 2 and our thoughts of that, which, I mean, ultimately, I don't think our interest has changed that extensively. but we at least, see now what the system looks like when it's out. And I just don't feel much for the Switch 2. It further pushes away the idea of physical games with their whole key card system, where the game is just a piece of plastic you put in the system and then it pulls from a server that actually downloads the game. The ridiculous prices for everything, whether it's paying $500 to get the game with Super Mario Kart World, instead of paying $80 for the game on its own if you decide to get it later. The fact that a Switch 2 Joy-Con is $100, and I think the Pro is even more than that or something. Like, every aspect of the Switch 2 feels anti-consumer, and yet it's selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, which is funny, because earlier you were talking about terminally online, because I am definitely terminally online, and that is something I got to work on. But we or at the very least, I saw the chats where you see all those people chanting "lower the price" in Nintendo's chat during the live streams, and so it appears like almost no one's gonna buy this thing, and then of course it sold really, really well, because why wouldn't it?
I mean, once again, Nintendo were straightforward with the marketing. Switch 2. So, casual consumers knew what to look for, and they got it. And price was no issue, apparently, despite the way the economy is right now.
What even is an economy? Do we know?
No, but I don't think most of us really know anymore. All we know about it is it's that thing that keeps beating us up and making eggs more expensive.
I heard there was a time when it was good, and I'm not sure if I believe them.
It feels like so long since then that, yeah, it's hard to even imagine.
Like, oh boy, I was a soda jerk and I made enough money to go to college. And it's like, no, you didn't. I don't believe you. Prove it. Oh no, I gotta save the sun. I'm so close. Oh well, at least if I die here.
True. But we can see if we can get some Reddit clout, so we'll have a bunch of people commenting "nice" underneath the video.
Nice.
Yep. Oh, yep, died around 68. Not gonna happen, Zach.
Yeah, but I made it to round 69. I just didn't win at round 69. I was not very nice with it.
I guess that just sums up life in general.
We talk about the economy and politics, and then all of a sudden it ends on 69. That is indeed life.
Humanity tries to strive forward. We try to get there, but we can never reach 69. And I think that's a good place to end for Nubby's Number Factory.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I'm glad you talked for most of that, because all I could think of is explosions. How do I make everything explode constantly?
Yeah, I didn't think I'd have much to say with this game, but thankfully, like you kind of alluded to before we recorded, it's very easy to talk over, because it is just, it's just a Peggle game.
It's basically Subway Surfers, in a way.
Well, I'd feel more okay with this in the corner of my screen than Subway Surfers. I'd feel slight more integrity.
I will sadly admit that anytime someone, jokingly adds the Subway Surfers thing, I try to look away from it, but, my eyes do keep, slowly glancing over to it. Oh, that does remind me. I'm gonna end this on a somewhat positive note. I have my ADHD medication. I don't remember if I think I brought that up in a video before, but since we're talking about the year, I got my ADHD medication. It's now on the right dose, and I feel like it's definitely helping.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize how much they need it until they get it. Like when I finally started taking anxiety medication before I go to sleep, and then I wake up the next day and I don't feel like my body is trying to kill me sometimes, or like when I'm out driving and I just feel terrified of everything, and now I feel a little bit more relaxed, like I can focus and do better. So yeah, if you feel like, if there's something you need to talk about with your doctor, do it, and you might be surprised how much it improves your standard of living.
Don't put it off like I did. I didn't get it till I was 32. You wanna know what I did until I was 32? I watched a bunch of YouTube videos and I had no problem with it. And then I took ADHD medication. It's almost like a third eye opened, and I was just like, I could be doing things. I'm a human being.
Yep, that's all it takes.
For 2026, everyone watching this, if you made it this far, you are now contractually obligated. That's right. If you don't follow it, I'll steal your soul. You have to improve your life for 2026.
Yes.
This is like The Ring, but more motivational.
Yeah, get in those New Year's resolutions, and if not live up to them, then fail them as fast as possible.